August 1st, 1966, a date that would be etched into the annals of history for its tragic events, a sweltering summer day in Austin, Texas. The sun beat down mercilessly, casting long shadows and making the air shimmer with heat. The University of Texas campus, usually bustling with students, stood quiet, the summer session winding down. The usual hustle and bustle had given way to a serene calm. The air, thick with humidity, held the promise of a lazy afternoon. People moved slowly, seeking shade and relief from the oppressive heat. No one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold. It was a day like any other, filled with the mundane activities of daily life. At 11:48 a.m., shots rang out from the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower, a 27-story structure overlooking the campus. The tranquility was shattered in an instant. The peaceful day exploded into chaos. Panic spread like wildfire as the realization of what was happening set in. Students, faculty and visitors scattered, caught in the open, the sickening crack of gunfire echoing across the plaza. Fear gripped everyone as they ran for their lives. The shots came in waves, precise and deadly. Each bullet found its mark, leaving devastation in its wake. Each blast from the high-powered rifle brought screams, the thud of bodies hitting the pavement, the frantic scramble for cover. The campus had turned into a war zone. The unseen sniper, perched high above, held the campus hostage in a grip of terror. His vantage point gave him a clear view of his targets. For 96 minutes the nightmare continued. Each second felt like an eternity for those trapped in the sniper's line of sight. The world watched in horror as the body count climbed, the gunman seemingly unstoppable. News of the tragedy spread quickly, leaving a nation in shock. This was a new kind of horror, a random act of violence that would forever etch itself into the American consciousness. It was a day that changed the way we viewed safety and security in public spaces. The architect of this carnage was Charles Whitman, a 25-year-old former Marine and engineering student. Behind his clean-cut facade lurked a darkness that few could have imagined. Whitman had meticulously planned his attack, transforming himself from an ordinary student into a one-man army. Days before, Whitman had murdered his wife and mother, leaving behind chilling notes that hinted at his plans. He then drove to a gun store, purchasing an arsenal of weapons, rifles, shotguns, pistols, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. He packed his car like a soldier preparing for battle, bringing with him food, water, and even gasoline bombs. Whitman had transformed his body into a walking armory, carrying enough firepower to wage war on the unsuspecting campus below. Whitman's ascent to the top of the tower was methodical. He overpowered the receptionist, fatally shooting her, and continued his climb, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. Reaching the observation deck, he barricaded himself, transforming the once peaceful space into a sniper's nest. From his vantage point, Whitman had a clear view of the campus and the surrounding streets. He began firing indiscriminately, his victims chosen at random. Students walking to class, couples strolling hand in hand, a pregnant woman. No one was safe from his reign of terror. The police were outmatched. Their weapons were no match for Whitman's high-powered rifle, and their attempts to reach the tower were met with a hail of gunfire. As the minutes ticked by, the death toll continued to climb, the sniper's reign of terror seemingly unstoppable. News of the shooting spread like wildfire, gripping the nation with a mixture of horror and disbelief. Televisions across the country broadcast the unfolding tragedy. The images of terrified students fleeing for their lives seared into the minds of millions. The final toll was staggering, 16 dead, including Whitman's mother and wife, and over 30 injured. The nation mourned the victims, their lives cut short by an act of senseless violence. The shooting left an indelible scar on the city of Austin, the University of Texas, and the nation as a whole. In the aftermath of the tragedy, questions arose. How could this happen? What could have driven a seemingly ordinary young man to commit such a horrific act? The search for answers would ignite a national debate about gun control and mental health, a debate that continues to this day. Charles Whitman was, on the surface, an unlikely mass murderer. He was intelligent, a former Eagle Scout, and had served his country in the Marines. But beneath the surface, a darkness brewed. Whitman had a troubled childhood marked by an abusive father. He struggled with anger issues and violent impulses, documenting his thoughts and feelings in a diary that would later become a chilling chronicle of his descent into madness. As Whitman grew older, his problems intensified. He abused amphetamines and suffered from debilitating headaches, which he believed were caused by a tumor. He sought help from doctors, complaining of uncontrollable urges to kill. Despite seeking help, Whitman's mental state continued to deteriorate. He became increasingly paranoid, convinced that people were watching him and plotting against him. His diary entries grew darker, filled with rage, despair, and suicidal thoughts. Whitman's fascination with violence grew. He studied the cases of other mass murderers, such as Lee Harvey Oswald, seemingly drawing inspiration from their actions. He saw himself as a victim, lashing out at a world he believed had wronged him. On the eve of the shooting, Whitman typed a suicide note, a rambling document that offered a glimpse into his tortured mind. He expressed remorse for killing his wife and mother, but also a chilling detachment, referring to his victims as my property. The Texas Tower shooting sent shockwaves across the country. It was a stark reminder of the deadly combination of mental illness and easy access to firearms. The nation grappled with how to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The shooting fueled the growing movement for gun control. People questioned how Whitman, a man with a history of mental instability, was able to legally obtain such a vast arsenal. Calls for stricter gun laws, including background checks and restrictions on the sale of high-powered rifles, gained momentum. The tragedy also shone a light on the inadequacies of the mental health system. Whitman had sought help for his problems, but his pleas for treatment seemed to fall on deaf ears. The shooting sparked a national conversation about the need for increased funding for mental health services and improved access to care. The Texas Tower shooting left an indelible mark on the American psyche, forever altering the landscape of our collective consciousness. It shattered the illusion of safety on college campuses, once considered sanctuaries of learning and growth. The sense of invulnerability was replaced by a pervasive awareness of potential danger. The shooting ushered in an era of heightened security measures on campuses across the country, a stark reminder of the ever-present threat of violence. Metal detectors, surveillance cameras, and increased police presence became the new norm. The shooting also changed the way law enforcement responded to mass shootings. Rapid response protocols were developed, and officers were trained to neutralize threats more efficiently. The prolonged standoff with Whitman highlighted the need for specialized tactical units equipped to handle such situations. This led to the formation of elite teams trained specifically for high-risk scenarios. The incident led to the development of SWAT teams and new strategies for responding to active shooter events. These teams are now a critical component of modern law enforcement. The legacy of the Texas Tower shooting continues to shape our world today. Memorials and ceremonies remind us of the lives lost and the importance of vigilance. The debate over gun control and mental health rages on, fueled by each new tragedy. Society grapples with finding a balance between individual rights and collective safety. The images of that day in August 1966 serve as a haunting reminder of the human capacity for violence and the urgent need to address the root causes of such horrific acts. They compel us to reflect on how far we've come and how much further we need to go. 50 years after the Texas Tower shooting, the event continues to haunt the American consciousness. The memories of that tragic day are etched deeply into the fabric of our society, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of violence. It stands as a grim milestone in our nation's history, a chilling reminder of the dark side of the American dream. The echoes of the past reverberate through time, urging us to reflect on the lessons learned and the changes still needed. The shooting forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the prevalence of gun violence, the deep-seated issues that plague our society, and the urgent need for reform. The stigma surrounding mental illness, which often prevents individuals from seeking the help they desperately need, and the ease with which troubled individuals can slip through the cracks, unnoticed and unaided, until it's too late. It challenged our notions of safety and security, leaving us with a sense of vulnerability that persists to this day. The illusion of invincibility was shattered, replaced by a sobering awareness of our own mortality. The Texas Tower shooting was a tragedy that should never be forgotten. It is a somber chapter in our history that demands remembrance and reflection. It is a story that must be told and retold, not to sensationalize violence, but to honor the victims, to acknowledge their pain and loss, to learn from the past, to understand the factors that led to such a catastrophe, and to inspire a better future. A future where compassion, understanding and proactive measures can prevent such tragedies. It is a call to action for all of us to work towards a society where such horrors are unthinkable, where every individual feels valued and supported.